This is Dr. Peter Belafsky, professor of Otolaryngology, head and neck surgery at UC Davis, and co-founder of Hope Medical and Reflux Gourmet. And this is One-on-One with ABC Partners.
Hi, this is Dave Almy from ADC Partners. And look, I know. This is a sports business podcast. The focus has always been on talking to people in the industry who are doing cool and interesting things. My challenge, though, is that I meet a lot of people from outside the sports business world who are also up to cool and interesting things. And then my curiosity gets the better of me. So curiosity may have well killed the cat, but apparently it's also started up a podcast. Dr. Peter Belafsky is a perfect example of this. The renowned surgeon, inventor, and physician is widely recognized as a leader in his specialty of, and I'm making sure I'm getting this right, Otolaryngology. I'm told that's science speak for the ear, nose, and throat. He's treated kings, famous hip-hop artists, athletes, and currently heads up the Voice and Swallowing Center at UC Davis. In our conversation, we'll get into his origin story to discuss how he became a doctor, how he pursues ideas and innovations that lead to new devices and treatments, the launch of his new product, Reflux Gourmet, and advice he has for people suffering from his area of focus, acid reflux. And I'll give you a hint, there's great news for coffee drinkers. So you're welcome. So your dad was a doctor. This is a family business for you. And I'm wondering if you have some memories of your dad as a doctor. And was there a moment when you started thinking, okay, yeah, I kind of want to do that. I see what my dad's doing here. What was that moment for you?
Actually, I'm going to take a step back, Dave. It was my grandfather was also a doctor.
This is a family business.
Family business. And it's really looking back on the generational effect you could have on people's lives that truly inspired my passion.
Did you have patients that were like friends of the family? Like, would you interact with those people and see the changes that they had in their lives?
My grandfather was an obstetrician. He was actually initially trained as a trauma surgeon in World War II. And when he got back from the war, he decided he wanted to deliver babies and do
Boy,
the
there's
opposite.
some you can talk about the psychology that goes along with that. It's probably pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so he delivered an entire generation of baby boomers in northern New Jersey.
Wow.
And I remember just, being up in North Jersey, spending time with my grandparents, and I'd be out with my parents at the local supermarket or 7-Eleven or Wawa or something. And people would recognize the name
Oh,
and
yeah.
be like, because, it's an unusual name. And it'd be like, oh, I think your father delivered my daughter, delivered
Brought
my
my kids
son.
into the world.
Yeah. And I'd be like, no, that's my grandpa. So, and literally you could not go out. No one could look at your license or your credit card and not recognize the name, because literally my grandfather was a hardworking man and he delivered an entire generation of baby boomers.
So it's incredibly personal in that way. I mean, you're walking around town, everybody is connected to you sort of. I mean, I would imagine too, there's an element of being an obstetrician bringing babies into the world. It's such a joyful thing, right? Did that part of the profession ever call to you? Did you ever think?
Absolutely. I went to medical school wanting to become an obstetrician.
Mm.
And then, having gotten my feet wet during my clinical rotations, I realized that women would like women south of the border.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
it sounded very reasonable
Right,
at the
of course.
time. Yeah. So then I turned my attention towards my father's profession, which was head and neck surgery.
Okay, so head and neck surgery.
Yeah. And for that, it was a little different. We'd be in a supermarket in South Jersey or something, and somebody would have a cut on their neck and say, your dad did this to me. Um, in a very positive way, right? But
Yeah.
I have a funny,
Look at
yeah,
this one.
right. I have a funny story about, a similar thing. My son had a similar experience with a scar I put on a patient's neck at a Raiders game. Noticed me, but anyway, so yeah, so I really wanted to be an obstetrician, but then sort of turned my attention towards my dad's profession because he loved what he did as well.
So you do your medical school down Tulane University in New Orleans, right? And you, like you said, you get your feet wet, you start to explore different disciplines, but the challenges of medical school residency are more or less pretty famous, right? I mean, I think most people are familiar with them just almost from popular media, like television shows and things like that. Long hours, little sleep. That's the kind of the gig. Can you reflect on that time in New Orleans, what you were doing, and how it shaped you into the doctor you are today? Talk about that period in your life as you started to develop.
I trained predominantly at Charity Hospital in New Orleans, which is no longer around. It was decommissioned after
Mm,
Katrina, but it was really the Wild West structure of working at Charity Hospital and the unique opportunity I had to care for some extremely sick people with
mm,
limited resources. But it's
yeah.
really trying to do more with less that really shaped my innovation
Mm.
spirit later in life because nothing directs innovation like restriction of resources.
Necessity is the mother.
Yeah. So we were really forced to do so much with so little. You have no other choice but to innovate and triage and do your best.
Was that a similar experience? Because I know you also worked at the VA in Biloxi. Was that a similar situation to charity where you were looking to do like kind of get resources where resources might not have been available to you? Did you have to be creative in both of those kind of environments, or was that really a charity hospital
It
thing?
was really a charity hospital thing. I mean, charity was called the Big Free
Mm,
because there was no billing. I mean, you walked in the door,
yeah.
you were taken care of regardless. So at the VA, we had a lot more structure. There was a lot more resources, a lot more mentorship and tutelage.
And so, but it does bring up the question. You brought it up, right? We're talking about necessity being the mother of invention and having to do more with less. Had you always, because you've got this really incredible entrepreneurial streak, and I'm wondering if you felt like you came to the profession with that, or was that something that you developed as a result of that?
It's hard to say, what
Mm,
came first. I know we were really at charity had our backs up against the wall to one is to try not to hurt anybody and
right.
then try and number one, number two, try to do the best for our patients. But as a junior attending and as an assistant professor, I had just some wonderful mentorship that really
Mm-hmm.
helped pave my entrepreneurship and my desire to innovate later towards the middle part of my career. And also being in Northern California, it's kind of in the DNA up here, right? Like everybody's got a startup company.
I myself have an untold number of unfunded startup companies. So if anybody's listening who wants to chip in, I'll have a Venmo link at the end of this podcast that you all can participate in. Big ideas
Yep, big
out there,
ideas.
Peter.
Yeah.
Big ideas that are out there. So having support from mentors as you're developing that part of yourself, the entrepreneurial part, because you do hold a ton of patents. How many patents now do you have on medical devices? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, probably four or five,
Four or five.
four or five,
Okay.
and
That's four or five more medical device patents than I hold.
yeah, and a
Okay.
half dozen failed startups along the way.
Doesn't fail startups, but that's kind of, and you do a whole thing on the importance of failure
Yeah,
too,
absolutely.
right? You do an important speech on the importance of failure. But I guess that's also where innovation comes from. Do you have a process for innovation when it comes to the medical field? Do you have like a time of the day where you sit down and go like, "Oh, what can I create next?" Or is it more of a thunderbolt kind of thing for you? How does that process generally work for you?
The process generally is, and again, this comes from one of my biggest mentors is a ear surgeon named Hillary Brody, who's my chairman, who recruited me to come up to UC Davis.
Mm,
And Hillary is one of the most positive, supportive, parent like figures that you can ever imagine. Like I was the director of the Voice and Swallowing Center in La Jolla. It's a hard place to leave, right? So I was recruited up here. I just had a 4-page
you're saying
list.
there's not a lot of traffic from San Diego up to Sacramento? Is
Uh,
this more the other way
yeah,
around?
there's not a lot of people leaving La Jolla. So everything Hillary was just like, whatever you need. I got a list, ran through the list. Sure, sure, sure. Literally, whatever. It just made it impossible to say no. But to Hillary, every single challenge is an opportunity.
Mm,
So even in failure, there's a learning opportunity. And I got this from my dad too. I always used to say, success is a terrible teacher, right? If and to Hillary, every challenge is an opportunity. Whether it's, what are you going to do during COVID? Are you going to get your pilot's license, which is what my wife and I talked my daughter into doing during COVID. Are you going to sit on your butt and watch Netflix all day? Like
I chose B.
um, yeah. So even especially in failure, that's really, if you're not failing, you're not pushing the envelope, you're not learning. So and Hillary was remarkable at that. Even when my father died, who was my best friend, it's like, what good can come out of losing your father early?
Mm,
But what an opportunity to become close with my mom. And she and I never had a
right.
relationship till my dad died. So even in
There is a perspective shift that goes along with those times, isn't it? And it feels like that's something that has been central to you. Largely, it's probably been there all along, but sometimes the mentors are the ones who really bring that kind of thing out to help shape that perspective about how do you turn the bad situations into that opportunity? What's the silver lining associated with that?
yeah.
I'm interested, though, because you're widely renowned for issues related to the voice and swallowing. And you have been focused on that area for a little over 20 years now. And I'm wondering, over the course of that time, have you seen changes or differences in afflictions now that you have a chance to look back a little bit on a career that's spanned that long? How have the patients coming to you changed, or what they're bringing to you changed?
Over the past 20 years or so, we've made tremendous strides as a medical field in diagnostics. But we can now see things we couldn't see before. We can hear things we couldn't hear before. We can feel things we haven't felt before. We can literally see through walls and body parts. And
So the X-ray glasses that I sent away for as a kid in the back of the comic book are now actually a thing.
it's now in my desk drawer, quite literally. But there's that diagnostic revolution has not been met by
Mm.
a therapeutic revolution. And that's what I
Okay,
did.
so the one's leading the other.
Right. So we've
Okay.
made so many strides in the diagnosis of various disorders of the voice, swallowing, and airway. But our treatments really haven't changed very much over the last 20 years. And
Is that starting to catch up now? Do you see that beginning to evolve, or is it still just diagnostics leading the trail?
we're doing our best. Yeah,
Yeah,
me and my colleagues, are really doing our best, but it's much slower going, in at least in my field. Uh, it's really why there's such wonderful opportunity, because there's been so many problems that haven't been solved yet.
right.
It's a great field to be in because of the opportunity.
Goes back to the opportunities and challenges within opportunities and kind of things like that. Now, as someone who focuses on issues related to voice and swallowing, I would think that the esophagus and the larynx provide you with the most interest in your job. But I have a sneaking suspicion you're going to throw me a curveball here.
I'm a technically a laryngologist, a laryngologist and a bronchoesophagologist, which
Or
means I'm a
English, English,
specialist.
English, English, English. What
I'm
the
a
heck? What the
special.
heck are those?
Well, I trained as like a ear, nose, and throat doctor. I've
Okay.
thrown out the ear, thrown out the nose, but I'm do a lot more than just the throat. So for me,
Okay.
the throat is also called the foregut, which really extends, all the way from the mouth down to the stomach. So I've later in my career, I've really developed a real passion for the stomach, which
Mm.
is really extended organ, sort of many would say outside of the typical ENT
I
doctors.
was gonna say it's not even in the name.
Yeah, not even in the name. Yeah, but the stomach is so fascinating.
Give me some fun facts about the stomach. What should I know
Oh gosh.
about my own stomach that I probably don't already know?
Well, Dave, your stomach,
Oh, it's getting bigger every day. That's one thing I need to know
yeah,
about
yeah, your stomach has been through the ringer. Um,
it.
but the stomach is about the size of your fist
Really? Is that
when empty.
small?
It's that small when
Huh.
empty, and it can enlarge to, gosh, hold about 4 liters
This
of.
is a podcast, so I'm a little bummed that people can't see your eyes because the look of awe when you just said it can expand to 4 liters. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually pretty big. It
And
goes from a fist to 4 liters. Okay, that's
four
that's pretty
liters,
dramatic.
right? And it's, as we all have heard, the stomach is the gateway to the soul, and it controls so much of our daily existence. What's going on in the stomach reflects, a lot of our anxiety, a lot of our
Eh,
mood,
yeah,
um,
it's right there at the center of our body.
and the stomach acid, which we all have copious amounts of.
Oh
The
yeah.
stomach acid is strong enough to burn skin and digest almost every organ in the body.
So I'm walking around with this soup in my stomach that could, for lack of a better term, kill me.
Absolutely. I mean, you are literally carrying around a copious amount of battery acid in your stomach.
Just
It's between pH 1 and 2. It's the same pH as battery acid.
okay. So dangerous stuff, but it's doing what
Dangerous
it
stuff.
needs to do. It's there for a reason, right? It's digesting the food. That's how it breaks down everything.
Absolutely. Not only is it essential in digestion, but it also kills the bacteria,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
Every little thing we put in our mouth has bugs on it. Like whether it's,
I'm
you
just never going to
know,
eat again after this conversation. What do you mean everything I put in my mouth has bugs on it? I wash my lettuce.
yeah, well, so it's essential to kill, not just digest the food, but kill the bacteria.
Yeah.
But it's thankfully protected by these mucosal cells that protect the walls of the stomach and the esophagus. And there's this layer of mucus that keeps the acid
Mm.
and the digestive or proteolytic enzymes from injuring itself, literally from keeping your body from digesting itself. Right.
Oy, vault. I mean, is this why acid? I mean, as someone who suffers from acid reflux, is that why it's so interruptive to people's experience? I mean, it's just when you're going through that moment, that acid boiling up and doing that kind of thing, it is uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable and dangerous.
Mm,
So the stomach is very well protected to handle this battery acid, right?
right.
But the esophagus less so, and the throat and upper
Oh,
airway much less so.
so the further north you go in the body, the less prepared you are to deal with these kinds of issues.
Right. So when the stomach isn't functioning well, and or you just overeat, right?
Never happens.
Never happens,
Never
right? So you
happens.
just overeat. It takes, for a reasonably sized meal,
Yeah.
4 hours for your stomach to empty. And that's just a reasonably sized meal.
Reasonable
How
side meal.
much of us,
Define reasonable. Define reasonable. I have a feeling I'm being really unreasonable in a lot of
a
stuff.
small plate of food. So
Damn.
not a giant plate of food, like one small plate of food, no second helping, just one small plate of food.
Making so many mistakes. Huh.
Imagine it's like just look at your fist, like a fist full of food, right? Anything bigger than that, the size of your fist is it's going to regurgitate, right? If it can't go south, it can only come north. The stomach needs to decompress.
So you kind of get this fascination with the stomach. We talked about the challenges, particularly those associated with acid reflux, right? The power of that acid in your stomach. We also talked about this entrepreneurial streak that you have. And these things all kind of coalesce because you helped create something called Reflux Gourmet, which I want you to both define, like what is Reflux Gourmet, and then can you give a little bit of the origin story associated with, like, how did that particular thunderbolt strike you in the entrepreneurial process, and how did it kind of come to be?
Right. Well, it's just extremely fortunate and sort of in the right place,
Mm.
given the right opportunities in the right time. And it's extremely fortunate to have just an incredible partner who's my counterpart at Harvard, who's a brilliant physician named Dr. Ramon Franco, who's has a very similar entrepreneurial spirit and has started successful medical device companies in the past. He and I just got together and were exposed to a celebrity chef named Ken Frank, who's the Michelin rated chef at La Toque in Napa. And he was a patient of ours with really bad acid reflux, and he's an international speaker and affecting his throat.
Oh, okay. So this is something not only from a just an enjoyment standpoint, but like it was starting to affect his ability to deliver the kinds of material that he wanted to deliver.
Yeah, no, it's affecting his career.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he had a growth on his vocal cord
Oh,
from
okay.
acid reflux. Yeah, acid reflux, if gone unchecked, can cause cancer. Certainly, the cancer of the esophagus, which
Okay.
is. But anyway, so he had like a really career-threatening, if not, a reflux-related disorder, and there's the beneficial effects of alginate or brown kelp or seaweed have been known for 100 years.
Okay.
There have been some other products overseas which we've utilized, seaweed based reflux product overseas that really helped our patients, but had some stuff in there just we didn't like. It had some additives that have been implicated in the development of certain cancers and some
Okay.
some stuff like not everybody wanted to put in their body.
So the seaweed you kind of already knew about as a potential treatment, but the products on the market just kind of it's almost there, but has some things in it we're just not a big fan of.
Right. So Ken, who's not only is one of the best chefs in the world, and I think arguably the number one truffle chef in the world.
How do they evaluate that?
He is
That's
like
a
the
that's a
king,
topic for a never broadcast. I took
right?
it. That's crazy.
But he's the king of like the Royal Order of the Knights of the Truffle or something. Like he's the head of the whatever the Royal Knights of the Truffle is. But anyway,
I want that title.
he was in addition to being the Lord Truffle, is just an amazing chemist. Like really one of the most
Huh?
brilliant chemists I've ever met.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's cooking, right?
Yeah, and he was able to devise an all natural formula, not only that was effective in protecting the throat and esophagus, but also tastes pretty good. And that's really where Ken's brilliance came in because the other available products were not very palatable, but Ken was
Okay.
just through his chemistry and culinary magic able to come up with an amazing formula.
What does it taste like?
Well, there's a vanilla caramel. Reflux Gourmet is a company. Our alginate products are vanilla caramel rescue, which tastes like vanilla caramel. And we have a mint chocolate rescue, which tastes like mint. And people say, well, mint is good for reflux. It's really just all natural flavorings. It doesn't actually have mint or chocolate in it that's
Sounds a lot
going
like
to.
dessert than it does a treatment.
It does, yeah. That's really incredible what he was able to create all this and keep it all natural.
So you get together, you develop Reflux Gourmet. Did you have a sense right out of the gate that like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer? Did you not know what you had with this? Because it is a sort of a new variation on an existing product.
Yeah, we had no idea what we had because
Right.
you help develop this thing using Ken's formula, and you really don't know what you have. You don't know if people are going to benefit from it. You don't
Hmm.
know people are going to like the taste of it.
Yeah, it's nerve wracking.
Right. It's terrifying.
Was there a moment when
Um,
you felt like people were going, "Oh, what they're like this is starting to happen"?
yeah, well, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of emails from
Hmm.
people, saying, this got me off the pills that, have side effects, or this helped allow me to get a lung transplant because my lungs were being injured from acid reflux, or I had
Wow.
esophageal cancer and this, helped me get through my chemotherapy. And, it's really those endless emails that has really kept us going. And so,
It's a departure too, because I know you, like you talked about, you have a few patents on medical devices. This is a really broad-based consumer-facing product. So it's potentially an enormous market. I mean, I speak from personal experience with acid reflux. I mean, it's not like esoteric by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, did you have to learn anything about bringing something like this to market? How is it different from some of your previous entrepreneurial efforts?
yeah, well, I've had consultants and mentors along the way, and it's
Hmm.
really, and Ramon with his brilliance has had a lot of experience in successfully bringing things to market. And like I said, I've had some startups in the past that got close, but
Hmm.
we just couldn't get over the finish line for one reason or another. And you take that life experience and learn from it. And
Everything folds up into this.
yeah, exactly.
Where does it go from here? I mean, it's been on the market now for a few years now. Do you start to feel like you're at the point where, okay, this is a pretty solid base? Does it have other applications or product extensions that you can take from this?
Reflux Gourmet is a company. Our viscous liquid, which is kind of like a gel that coats the throat and esophagus and
Hmm.
protects it from the battery acid. It also prevents regurgitation. That's our one product. We also have a reflux pillow, which is really one of the most
Really?
comfortable
It must be tough
reflux
to eat.
pillows on the market. Yeah. It,
So there's actually a physical pillow.
it's a pillow that elevates your chest, so gets gravity on your sides when you, instead
Okay.
of lying flat at night where the contents of your stomach can regurgitate and burn your esophagus and throat. This literally just gets gravity on your side and elevates your chest.
It's a passive way to control acid reflux with the pillow.
Absolutely.
Huh.
So yeah, so with the pillow, and we're coming out with a alginate based chewing gum, which will be the first reflux relief chewing gum in the world. We're really trying to develop a lifestyle to improve symptoms, quality of life, and in some circumstances, trying to get people off potentially harmful medications.
So it does sort of boil down to that. It's like, okay, obviously diet and everything that goes into that and how you eat and all impact it. But there is this sort of lifestyle component to it. Like, what are the things that you're doing around your life to be able to mitigate some of the impacts that acid reflux has? Because again, I think everybody I talk to has acid reflux almost to some degree, right? So it's all these things that go around your day-to-day life to alleviate that.
Yeah, and you're in the sporting world, right? And that's some of the most
Oh, it's
um,
nothing but health food.
right, reflux provoking, behaviors in the world. What there's like a billion chicken wings consumed on Super Bowl Sunday, right?
It's like, I mean, Super Bowl Sunday has to be like you could probably just pour Reflux Gourmet out over the entire population of the U.S.
Literally, we've had people tell us, they put on their ice cream, but yeah, yeah. So it's absolutely, you can make a huge improvements just with quality of life, right? We talked about the stomach takes between 4 and 5 hours to empty.
Yeah.
So if you eat dinner at 7 and go to bed at 9:30,
Oh.
you're going to have a fistful of food in your stomach that's getting sloshed around that can
Really?
regurgitate with the stomach acid and burn vital organs. So
I, I, honest to God, I think I'm going to start having dinner at 4 now, just to make sure I get past that threshold. Now, you brought
we'll
this
get
up.
you
You
off
brought,
the drugs, Dave. We'll get you off the drugs.
get me off the drugs. You did bring this up. This is nominally a podcast about sports business, so we have to create a little bit of crossover here.
Oh, they
And
told me that this was a health and wellness podcast.
it is, but with a huge sports business undercurrent associated with it. So just, you got to keep that in mind as we do this thing. This is an industry that can eat pretty poorly, right? I mean, all you have to do is take one look at the nachos, and the cheese getting pumped out of a can to know that that's probably not going to be a great 9 o'clock at night response mechanism for your stomach. And the other thing too is there's a lot of stress involved, right? Games turn on a moment's notice and things happen. It's just a lot of stuff, and I'm assuming stress plays a pretty big role in that. These are conditions that are acid reflux home base, to use a little sports analogy. Give for the layman, for the person standing in the stadium on game day or sitting in the front office, how can people head off acid reflux before it really becomes a problem? Give some choice tips in addition to using Reflux Gourmet.
Number one, don't overeat.
Okay, control yourself.
Don't eat anything more than the size of your fist.
It's so hard.
The 2 pound bratwurst at the Pac-12 championship game probably is going to end up rejoining you at some point.
All right, you're going to be seeing it again.
Right. So what is just don't
So control,
overeat.
self-control.
Right. And number two is just closing the kitchen early. And this was one of my other mentors, surgeon named Jamie Coffin, was just a huge proponent. You're going to do one thing, just shut the kitchen early, like you said.
Just
like,
eat earlier.
eat earlier, and then stop eating at 4 o'clock, and then ensure that when you lie down, which is when some of the most harmful effects of reflux sort of take place, it's going to be much less likely with an empty stomach.
Okay.
Those are the big ones. Number three is elevating your head of bed or sleeping in a comfortable upright.
So a little bit more upright.
Right. Our reflux pillow comes into play, and that doesn't mean just propping yourself up on pillows, which can cause the acid to pool in your throat, but really getting your whole chest up. And the magic number there is like 7 inches.
7 inches elevate head over torso, or stomach.
Elevate chest right over torso. 7 inches is the magic. More than 7 inches has been shown to be uncomfortable and of limited benefit. So it's really the sort of the Goldilocks zone for sleeping upright is 7 inches.
Right.
But those are really the big ones. And avoiding acidic foods is one we hear a lot of.
What are the worst offenders? Acidic food worst offenders are?
It's really not like the spicy food is not the enemy. Like if it doesn't bother you on the way down, it's probably not causing much harm. The other one we get a lot of is people saying, "Oh, I was told by somebody else, to avoid coffee." We actually did a study years ago. I had to give up coffee I was having like a rapid heartbeat. So my doctor told me to give up coffee for a while. And I was like, well, if I can't drink coffee, I'm taking the rest of the world with me.
Right. You're all going down, Starbucks.
Right. So I did this like really extensive trial over 2 years to look at the effects of caffeine on reflux. and black coffee. And what we found was actually that up to 3 cups of black coffee a day was actually protective against reflux.
Oh, what?
Yep. So as long as you're not piling up with cream and sugar, black coffee has a lot of potential positive health benefits. So you no need to give up black coffee.
We talk a lot about diet and poor eating and like late eating and going to bed as being a big cause of acid reflux. But that's not always the case, right? Because even people who are physically fit, like you go into exercise, it can be a pretty common thing for people to experience acid reflux when they're trying to be physically fit, right? That's not uncommon.
Athletes, it's really a unique population of patients with reflux disease because they're doing things to their body that they weren't meant to do.
Mm.
And the results of that are fascinating. In addition to the mentality of taking care of athletes is even more fascinating.
Okay.
When you're straining, whether it's from running or bending or weightlifting, anytime you're straining,
I'm walking
you're
upstairs.
at increased risk of regurgitating.
Okay.
Right. And when you're at peak performance, you need to hydrate too, right? So
Right.
you can't perform on an empty stomach. Imagine, running 26 miles without any nutrition and any hydration.
And battery acid sloshing around in your stomach.
Exactly. And battery acid sloshing around your stomach. So it's a very challenging population to take care of. But that's where the Reflux Gourmet has helped so many people because it coats and protects. There's a small amount of sugar in there for energy, but it
Oh, okay.
prevents regurgitation. So, and we're actually working on a product specifically for athletes.
Oh, a future development coming up, which is, leading to those extended product lines.
Runners Gourmet.
Runners Gourmet coming to you soon. All right, tips for better living from Dr. Peter Belafsky, who I want to say thanks for joining me, Peter. But before I let you go, like everybody else, I'm going to have to put you into the lightning round.
I've been dreading
these.
That. You know that.
Yeah, I know you've sort of been dreading this. I know you know this is a thing, but I'm going to give you a bunch of questions here. I have not pre-screened these with you, so these are going to be straight from the doctor's mouth. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
All right, let's do this thing. All right, the lightning round. What's the strangest place you fell asleep in the hospital during your residency?
Elevator.
Standing up?
Standing up.
Standing up. You fell asleep standing up in the elevator during residency. Okay. You did your medical school at Tulane in New Orleans. What was your favorite thing to eat when you lived in the Big Easy?
Shrimp po' boy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. You're a big Eagles fan. Please sing the first 2 verses of the fight song.
You want me to sing it or say it?
Oh, I want you to sing it.
Fight, Eagles, fight on the road to victory. Fight, Eagles, fight. Score a touchdown, 1, 2, 3. Hit them low.
Oh, he's going to keep going. He's going to keep going. I shouldn't have interrupted. I could have gotten the whole song out of you.
It's the lightning round. Come on, stick to point.
It's a lightning round to keep it moving. Another Eagles question. Jaws, Randall, Donovan, Nick, or Jalen?
Nick.
That one hurts. Okay. Last one. On the Reflux Gourmet website, your bio says you're known for, among other things, crazy ideas. Other than appearing on this podcast, what's the craziest idea you've ever had?
Well, I was going to cure voice disorders with the world's most powerful magnets and almost ended up killing myself.
Okay, that would be the craziest idea I've heard today. So well done, Dr. Peter Belafsky. I'm going to ask you to do the title because there's no way I can pronounce this. Professor of
Otolaryngology, head and neck surgery.
Of UC Davis and co-founder of Hope Medicine and Reflux Gourmet.
Go Aggies.
Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening to this episode of the One-on-One Sports Business Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed it, we always appreciate a subscribe, share, comment, or like. And don't forget, you can always find past episodes at abcpartners.com/podcast. This podcast is written, produced, edited, and hosted by Dave Almy. And the theme music was composed by Scott Holmes.